anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not. But Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that needs to defend itself. That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers at war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way. But now, assistance to Ukraine is being blocked by those who want to walk away from our world leadership. It wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Now, my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that, bowing down to a Russian leader. I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
It's Ken Harbaugh with Against All Enemies on the MeidasTouch Network. Joe Biden delivered an incredible State of the Union address last week. He hit every note he needed to. As a veteran, I thought one of the most important issues he addressed was the need to challenge Putin and stand up for Ukraine. Unsurprisingly, the vast majority of Republicans in attendance stayed sitting. The party that once stood firm against the Soviet Union is now cowering before Vladimir Putin. There are a couple reasons for that. Within the Republican Party, there is a constituency composed mostly of evangelical Christians who view Putin as a defender of traditional values, someone who has stood up to the supposed decadence and immorality of the West. Then there is Donald Trump, who appears to sincerely admire Vladimir Putin because of, not in spite of, his strongman tendencies. Here is the former Prime Minister of Australia describing how Trump behaved in Putin's presence.
The Republican Party under Donald Trump, and particularly the right wing of the Republican Party, are very sympathetic to Vladimir Putin. I mean, I've been with Trump and Putin. Trump is in awe of Putin. When you see Trump with Putin, as I have on a few occasions, he's like the 12-year-old boy that goes to high school and meets the captain of the football team. My hero. It is really creepy. It's really creepy.
The Republican Party is increasingly in the thrall of Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump is the main reason for that. I spoke with Dave Troy, an investigative journalist who has dived deep into the relationship between the American right and Russia, and how the former president in particular developed such an affinity for Vladimir Putin. Our full interview comes out soon on Burn the Boats, but this part is especially relevant right now as President Biden is doing everything he can to pressure Republicans to help defend the victims of Russia's aggression. It seems to me that the relationship between Putin and the Christian right in this country is entirely asymmetric. The affinity for extremist Christian nationalists in this country for Putinism seems sincere. But Putin seems 100% cynical in his treatment of the Christian right in this country. It's not a real relationship. One side is in the thrall of Putin, and Putin must be, laughing in his dacha every time he sees a pastor in this country celebrate the moral values of Putin's Russia.
Yeah, I mean, it is very, very cynical. And, there's a bunch of people that are pulling in the same direction of Putin, in addition to the, sort of Christian right. You've got people like David Sachs and Elon Musk and Jeffrey Sachs. And, there's a long list of people that have been shilling for Putin for whatever reasons. Everybody sort of assumes it's compromat or money or whatever. But honestly, I think it really boils down to just having a contrarian worldview and believing that, some of what Putin is saying is right. And they would rather go down this road of authoritarianism than continue on the road of dealing with the hard work of pluralistic democracy. Because when you face it, democracy is a pain. It goes slow. There's a lot of mess. Everybody's annoyed all the time. It's like if you could just have a nice autocracy, you could just make some rules and do some things and just move faster. And I think that a lot of the drive towards accelerationism is really expressing a frustration with democracy and all of its hoopla that goes with it. And I think one of the darker things that we see kind of coming out of this is that democracy itself is pretty easy to engineer and to control. So if you look at just even like any given election, because you have this first past the post election system where the majority vote getter wins, it's relatively easy to engineer a contest where you've got, say, 3-4 candidates, and if the one that you don't want to win, you throw in a couple of spoilers and it pulls off 4 or 5%. Then that guy won't win and the strongman will. And so that's kind of what you see happening with RFK Jr. and Jill Stein and Cornel West, all of whom are basically part of the same organ. People pretend that they are sort of like representing different points of view. But if you think about them, actually what they're doing is drawing from slightly different factions, which again is this idea of gaining factional control. So, RFK Jr. is very popular with boomers of a certain age. You've got Cornel West, who they put in the mix to appeal to black people. You've got Jill Stein, who's also popular with boomers, but also environmentally oriented type folks. So, it's pure engineering is all it is. And if you come at the U.S. democratic system with a cynical frame of mind, with just control, strategic control being your only goal, then it's not very difficult to engineer the outcomes that you want. And that's, I think, exactly what is happening right now.
We haven't really talked about Trump yet. And his affinity for Putin seems personality driven. It's not as much about the policy positions or even worldview. It seems more visceral than that. He's just drawn to the strongman persona, the autocratic sensibility. Am I right in perceiving that?
I think that's a big part of it for sure. And I'll send you a link to a thread that I just did a couple days ago, and I'm starting to get a little bit bigger picture on this, and we'll be writing more about it. But yes, the personality thing is a big affinity point, I think, for Trump. There's also a lot of evidence that Trump has been pulled into the KGB milieu as far back as like the early to mid 70s. The key thing you have to remember about Trump is that he's from Queens, right? And, there is, no chip on one shoulder bigger than someone's who is from Queens and doesn't feel like that they quite fit in Manhattan. And the KGB latched onto that in a big way, because the whole thing really is that, yes, he's not John Jacob Astor. He's never going to be like some old money Vanderbilt Rockefeller. He's a grubby little dude from Queens. And that inferiority complex, people think, oh, he doesn't have an inferiority complex. Yes, he does. He wishes that he was those people. He was snubbed by them his entire life, is snubbed by them now. And, he feels as though it's his duty to sort of put one over on all of these people that said that, no, you're not part of our club. And so the KGB just latched onto that and is using it to great advantage. So I think, in terms of Trump, that's what makes him tick, is that he's got this giant chip on his shoulder.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Between now and the election, I'm going to highlight a handful of critical pro-democracy efforts that I want you to know about. The first of these is Veterans for Responsible Leadership, or VFRL. It's an organization on the front lines of the battle to protect our democratic safeguards and to hold accountable those who would dismantle them. VFRL's number one priority between now and November is preventing Donald Trump from being reelected. As an organization led by veterans, VFRL is bringing to bear all that experience and credibility to persuade other veterans and military family members that a vote for Donald Trump is a vote that undermines the very Constitution that those in the military swore to uphold. Here's where VFRL needs your help. If you are a veteran or a family member of one, and if you're looking for ways to make meaningful contributions between now and November, go to VFRL.org. The team there is working on a number of critical initiatives that will make a difference in the coming presidential election. But they need more veteran voices and more volunteers. If you're up for it, go to VFRL.org and sign up. I'll have more updates in the coming months on what they have planned, but trust me, it'll be worth your time. Thanks. I'm married with children, and I know that finding the right life insurance to protect my family with Policy Genius has never been more important. Make life insurance part of your financial planning this year. Start shopping now with Policy Genius to find a policy to protect your family. Getting life insurance today means you'll have peace of mind so that if something were to happen to you, your family can cover expenses while getting back on their feet. Luckily, Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. Having the right insurance will give me the peace of mind knowing that my family will be taken care of in a worst-case scenario. Policy Genius has licensed award-winning agents and technology that makes it easy to compare life insurance quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius works for you, not the life insurance companies. That means they don't have an incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Save time and money, and protect your family with a financial safety net using Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/boats or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/boats. Given all of the available compromise on this personality, the real vulnerability is his insecurity. It's not money. It's not scandal. Those are all very real flaws in this person's character, but it's his deep-seated insecurity. We talked to Mary Trump about this. We talked to Bandy Lee about this. It's a pathology.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's why he's just so manipulable. And I think, again, people get it wrong that people are all about money. Musk wants money. That's not what motivates him. Sure, people are motivated for money up to like their first $100 million or first billion or whatever. After that, it's just like, then it's about power. It's about worldview. It's about controlling of others. It's about creating the future that you believe is the best future. That's what motivates people. Of course, sex too sometimes, but it's not just about money. That's one part of a much bigger picture.
You said recently that Trump not only presents a danger to democracy in the United States, but a danger to democracy everywhere. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I think it's sort of self-evident just that the U.S. is, what many people would consider to be the reference implementation of democracy. Like this is sort of how it's supposed to be to an extent. Although I would argue that, many countries around the world seem to be doing a better job at democracy than we are at the moment. I was in Switzerland last week. And a fun fact about Switzerland is that I was in this restaurant. They have a big room, old restaurant from 100 years ago, with murals depicting scenes in the life of George Washington. And I'm like, why is this the George Washington room? The reason was because the Swiss in 1848 adopted the U.S. Constitution as a blueprint for their own constitutional republic. And so it's sort of impossible for us as, Americans just sitting here to fully understand the degree to which America's influence around the world has had an impact on democracies everywhere. So to some extent, if American democracy fails or falls apart or, discontinues support of key allies, and we're seeing this right now with Israel and Ukraine, it's going to have a big impact on the world and, sort of how the world sees democracy as a whole. So, I think that, Trump's, if you really listen to him, he actually doesn't exhibit that much support for like a Christian nationalist agenda. He doesn't care about religion. He's pretending to some extent. But, what he's actually said is that he wants to basically end the Constitution, that he thinks the Constitution sucks. And, that we want to do something else. And certainly everything he does in terms of fact and deed suggests a desire to subvert the Constitution. He doesn't, believe in the elections. He doesn't believe in the laws. He thinks that everything should be sort of thrown out in favor of this populist, rule that he's seeking. And of course, the Republicans have basically been fully co-opted by this faction now. I mean, I was hoping, and I guess not that optimistic that it would happen, but, kind of hoping that Nikki Haley would be able to push back on some of this and be able to kind of crystallize a faction that would eject this disease from the Republican Party, but it's just not happening. So, it seems like he's got a really tight hold on the U.S. Republican Party. And I think, this is going to have impacts around the world. Certainly you see reflections in people like Orban, and I have no idea what's going on with Milei in Argentina. But, there's this sort of this strongman mold that's taking root. And I think it's very disturbing.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.